70 years ago, on this day, April 13th, 1954, it was MLB opening day, and this LA boy made his big league debut as a member of the Cleveland Indians. He was a great hitter and voted All-State 3 years in a row by high school coaches of California, and in 1947 he was one of two LA high schoolers picked to be on the USA All-Star team, made up of the best young players from across the country and play in a tournament at the Polo Grounds in New York. Some of his teammates were Harry Aganis, Don Ferrarossi, Gino Simoli, Moose Skowron, and Billy Harrell. Coaching that USA All-Star team was Hannes Wagner and Ossie Witt. In attendance and making one of his last appearances at a ball game was only the biggest name in baseball back then, and even today, Babe Ruth. This player was there on the field and said the Babe looked a little shaky as he threw out the game's first pitch from the front row seats. The player I'm talking about was successful at every level of baseball. Just about every team he played for was either champions or in the championship game, starting from when he was in high school, to junior college, to university, his Army team, his winter ball teams, his teams in the minors, and the one team he played for in the majors. They were all winners. In this player's relatively short MLB career, he met and played with some of the greatest players in baseball history. And it's said he is the only person to play in the Junior World Series, the College World Series, the Caribbean World Series, and the Major League World Series. A high school superstar from the start, and pretty much from the get-go, if there was a write-up on him, he would be referred to as the Italian Kid. It may have been outright prejudice or a simple misunderstanding about his last name, but he was always quick to point out he's all Mexican. But you can see how people might get confused with a name like Rudolph Valentino Regalado, nickname Rudy, infielder, MLB debut, opening day, 1954, 70 years ago today. Rudy's dad would make baseballs for his youngster out of balled-up socks wound tight with string and held together with tape. While attending Glendale High, Rudy would get together with players from other high schools in the LA area and meet Saturdays for pickup games at Griffith Park. The quality of players would attract the attention of guys like Babe Herman and Casey Stengel, who lived in the area and sometimes showed up to watch. Rudy enrolled in Glendale Junior College in 1947 at the advice of longtime USC baseball coach Rod Dedeaux, who told him to get his education first. The following school year, Coach got Rudy a scholarship to USC and even got him a job on campus. Rudy said, "My dad couldn't afford to send me to university. Coach, he was like my second dad. He really helped me out." Rudy was paid $150 a month, minus $75 for tuition and $72 to the frat house for room and board, saying, "I had $3 left over to live it up with." In his first season with the Trojans, he was California Intercollegiate Batting Champion, hitting .411. USC was West Coast champs in 1949 and played in the College World Series that year. Like many of the era, the Student Athletes National Guard unit was activated, and in 1950, Rudy Regalado was sent to Japan, where he was player manager on the GI's championship team, who played against Japanese teams from all over Japan. His next assignment had Rudy in Korea, near the front lines. His job was keeping track of soldiers' deaths. He said, "It was a tough job." Yeah, made only tougher when one of the names that came across his desk was a local high school boy he used to play ball with back in LA. While serving his country, Rudy Regalado was made corporal before coming back home to Los Angeles in 1952. Still college eligible, so Rudy and a few Trojan players hit the road that summer with the Fergus Falls Red Sox in the West Central League. Then one night, one he'll never forget, he got a visit from former Cleveland Indian GM, now scout, Cy Slapnicka. Rudy is offered $10,000 to sign. Kind of funny how Rudy's dad and his USC coach told him to stay in school. Big money changed all of their minds. Coach said, "Forget your last year at USC, you can always make it up. Take the money." Spring 1953, Rudy is now a pro ball player with the Reading Indians, Class A Eastern League, winning that league's championship. Rudy played in 89 games with a team that had 9 future MLB stars like Rocky Colavito and Herb Score. While those two stayed in Reading, Rudy was promoted to Cleveland's AAA team come 1954. The college boy, yet to graduate, but knew how to craft a nice letter, sent one to Cleveland Indians general manager Hank Greenberg, and Rudy asks if he can join the Indians in Arizona instead of going to Daytona, Florida with the AAA team. Rudy gets the okay, but by this time his gear is already headed to Daytona, while Rudy is headed to Scottsdale. From the start, he impressed. In his first squad game, Rudy hit a home run and got a single. Indians manager Al Lopez told reporters at camp, "I like him a lot." Rudy was tried out on all 3 bases and was asked to stay at camp as other prospects were sent packing to Daytona. That's where Rudy was originally scheduled to be, and that's where his bats were. Last thing you want to do as a rookie prospect at a big league spring training camp is ask guys you don't know if you can use their bat. But Rudy did. He was once asked, "Whose bats did you borrow?" Rudy said, "I don't remember, but they were good bats because they worked." In his first few weeks of spring training, Rudy was hitting .481 with 9 home runs and 19 RBIs, and this was against big league squads. Cleveland didn't know what base to put Rudy on, so they didn't put him on any, and he barely played the rest of camp. It was a mystery because he was one of the hottest hitters in all of spring training. Some say there just wasn't a spot on that stacked Cleveland roster, while others say he had trouble turning the pivot when playing second. Either way, it didn't matter. On April 6, 1954, the Indians bought his contract, and a week later, on opening day, Rudy would get into his first big league game as a pinch runner. He played in 65 games for the Tribe during their historic 111-game win season, as well as all 4 games of the 1954 World Series. He said he could not believe how good the curveballs were in the big leagues. Rudy took his share of the World Series money, $6,700, went home, re-entered USC, and got his degree in physical education. Cleveland Indians versus San Francisco Seals. Your San Francisco Seals, 1955 Cleveland Indians. Rudy Regalado is number 8 in this program. You see Rocky Colavito makes an appearance. That winter, Rudy played for the Rosabelle Plumbers, a semi-pro team in LA, and they won the AAA Baseball League Championship. Rudy played in 10 games for the Indians in 1955, yet was not invited to their spring training camp, even though he's listed on this roster you're looking at. That's when Cleveland came through San Francisco from a game most likely played just before the start of the regular MLB season. At the end of the 1955 season, Rudy, Russ Nixon, and Hank Aguirre headed down to south of the border, and together the 3 would be champions of the Mexican Pacific League. No mention of Rudy attending the Indians' 1956 spring training camp, but he was there according to this listing you're looking at. 1956 starts off just like 1955. Rudy's with the Indianapolis Indians and hitting well. So is his new roommate, a young Roger Maris, who is years away from breaking Babe Ruth's home run record. They became friends and stayed close until Roger's death in 1985. That Indianapolis club had 24 players who were or would be MLB players. Yeah, they won that league's championship, then swept the Rochester Red Wings of the International League in the Junior World Series. In that series, Rudy was 8 for 16 with a home run, a triple, and a double. The 1956 season would be his last in the majors, making only 16 appearances for Cleveland. Season over, Rudy joined Leones in the Venezuelan League, with Leones winning the championship and qualifying for the Caribbean World Series held in Havana, Cuba. This is pre-Fidel Castro, so the stadium wasn't flooded with troops and machine guns like it was for the Minneapolis Millers in 1959. Rudy was optioned to Cleveland's top affiliate, the San Diego Padres, for 1957, where he'd play with future Indians Gary Bell and Mudcat Grant. Dad saw them play that season in San Diego, and that scorecard has quite a few future or former Indians on it. Rudy Regalado had another great year at the plate in 1957 and was named best third baseman in the minor leagues and would be picked as the third baseman on the PCL All-Star team. I wonder back in the 1950s, how many times did a young Mexican from LA get on the Ed Sullivan Show? Rudy Regalado was on twice. The first time was just after the 1954 World Series, and the second time was with that 1957 PCL All-Star team. With the 57 PCL season over, Rudy again went back down to Venezuela to play winter ball, winning that league's batting title. He played all of 1958 and half of 59 with the Padres before finishing his career in 1960 with the Seattle Rainiers. And rather than play for Jersey City on the East Coast, Rudy hung up his spikes and put away his glove. With his new career, investing in apartment complexes in the San Diego area, which worked out really well with his other job, because Rudy met a TV executive who offered him a 90-day trial as a salesman for a TV station out of Mexico. But the deal was he had to play on the company's softball team. That trial offer turned into a 25-year career. Rudy was married for 57 years. He had 3 sons and would make time to coach Little League. And he would also go out of his way to help raise funds for the church. Cartoon drawing of Lane Field. Rudy loved his time playing ball in San Diego and talks about the closeness of the community and the fans. He said many of the bachelors and coaches on the team lived downtown at the San Diego Hotel. It was close to the park and they could walk down Broadway on their way to Lane Field, past all the bars, clubs, and tattoo parlors that all Navy towns have. Rudy recalls how everywhere you looked, you'd see sailors in their bright white uniforms. Everything looked clean and new, except for Lane Field. It was run down, and after the 57 season, then torn down. Rudy said one of his least favorite moments from Lane Field was every time someone flushed the clubhouse toilets, the showers went cold. I will end today's show with a recollection from Rudy Regalado from the last season games were played at San Diego's Lane Field. It's 1957, the year the Seals won the pennant and were PCL champs, and with the New York Giants moving to San Francisco, this would be the Seals' last season playing in the city by the bay. So, Rudy is playing with the San Diego Padres, and the Seals are in town for a visit. The two teams are battling for first place, and it's the first game of a doubleheader. It's been raining pretty good at Lane Field, and that field, it's getting sloppy. So Seals manager Joe Gordon walks over and talks to the ump, wanting the games called off. When reasoning didn't work and complaining didn't help, Rudy said he watched as the Seals manager, who was in his mid-40s and hadn't played ball in 8 years, walked over to third base, turned around, and he looked at the ump standing at home plate. And then he started running full steam back towards home plate and dives head first right in front of the ump, spraying him with mud. Bit dramatic, but it worked. No more ball was played on that day.